Hello, everybody. My name is Cress Carson, and or how I also like to refer to myself is a boy named Sue. Now, some of you may recognize that this is an old Johnny Cash song. It was recorded back in 1969, and it was also a poem by Shel Silverstein, which is what he based the song off. What this song pretty much tells the story of is a boy, literally named Sue, who grew up his life being ridiculed because he had a girl's name. He ends up finding his father in a bar and ends up installing a big barroom brawl in which he finally gets his dad pinned down in this nasty fight and he gives his dad last words. And his father tells him, "Son, this world is rough, and if a man's got to make it, he's got to be tough. And I knew I wouldn't be there to help you along." Those words always stuck with me, and that's what I exemplify in an early part of my life. I was the boy named Sue. This was a taker mentality from what I ended up growing that's referred in the Give and Take book by Adam Grant. Being a farmer, from what I understood from Dad, was being somebody who was very solidarity. They were a real tough guy. Asking for help wasn't permitted. It was a sign of weakness. You had to take pride into something that you own, and that you needed to, and that you needed to take advantage of others at whatever cost, because that farm came before everything, and you weren't going to be given any breaks. And I went through this up until my early college years, until I finally realized I'm actually not that great at this farming thing. Despite all my years of training, I realized that having this mentality wasn't good for the farm. And then I finally realized that I needed to take on a little bit more of a different management strategy. And this included being either a matcher or a giver. And I decided that I decided to go on the other end of the spectrum and be perhaps more of a giver. And what instilled in this is I then became this ultimate giver, and I just did everything on the farm. I led by example. I helped out others when I could. And in turn of this, we started seeing a little bit of a reciprocity in which this is kind of like a matcher value in which quid pro quo is recognized. And this means you repay people in kind. Farming really definitely endeared this term, in which, if you had to go out and work on something at 7 a.m., if cattle were out, you expected somebody had to help you if that happened again. And this also required you being consistent. I had to always do the same things over and over again. I had to act in the best interest of others. And because of this, because I was so consistent, people were willing to do business with me, I found. Nobody wants to do business with somebody that's risky, in which they think it may cause harm to them. So consistency provided a better benefit to them. In general, this included just general liking. Everybody wanted to be liked. You have to be able to relate to somebody, even if you did not like them. My general rule of thumb is you had to learn how to be a good friend. These are all terms of persuasion by Robert Cialdini. And something that I really struggled with on some of his terms were authority. Being somebody at my young age, in my early 20s later on, that I had a hard time telling men who were over twice my age how to do their job. This was also something that I found really interesting, that even in Adam Grant's book, that doctors struggled people to have listening to them because they lacked having diplomas on their walls showing their experience. And this is something that I didn't have. In the land of farming, nobody really cared if you had a diploma. You had to show your consistency and show your experience over time. And it was a long, hard walk to be able to get to the point of where I was a respected manager. Now, this was all good and great, and I ran an efficient farm, but then it finally came into account of how much I was really giving. Now, this is where I started risking myself burned out, and which is why I am now here today talking to you. I burned out and I quit. I gave too much. I was giving so much that I was working over 12 hours a day, every day, not a single day off, and I didn't have time for others. and it led to a mild depression. And finally, I realized that I had enough. Giving can actually be a pitfall in and of itself. So that is why I am here to tell you that we need to find a balance between, we don't want to be takers, because takers, you're not going to succeed. You don't want to be necessarily a giver, not entirely anywho, because you're probably going to give too much, in which you're going to be burned out. We've got to find the middle ground, in which we call matchers. But however, matchers, we have shown that Adam Grant showed us, just aren't efficient. We need to be able to find a good middle ground, in which Adam Grant actually calls a unagreeable giver. So in which it's a giver who can pick and choose when and where they need to give. This is something that I know is going to stick to me, and that I'm going to hope to realize throughout the rest of my life, and that really stuck out to me. And people might be asking me, Cress, what's this have to do with anything? I mean, you're giving us farmer examples, and I'm here to say, no, that is not necessarily true. Let's look at the example of Heidi Rosen, who is a former software company CEO, and she turned venture capitalist. She got to the point where she burned out working for Apple, and she had to quit, and she went on to doing something more meaningful for her life, and now is a venture capitalist. So therefore, we can kind of see that this is not just true in the farming world, but in the corporate world. And these were some of my biggest takeaways from this. And I think that anybody could benefit from reading this book by Adam Grant. Thank you all, and have an excellent evening.